Now, you're in Western New York. Are there any historic buildings or locations in New York that you think don't get the type of attention and protection that they richly deserve in terms of their cultural or supernatural history? Do any stand out that you'd like to see a little bit more or get a little bit more out of this?
Well, sure. I mean, there is a foundation that has started to put up panniers or even really solid metal monuments inscribed outside a handful of really prominent folkloric places in my part of the state. West Seneca is a small town, and they call it that because it was part of a reservation. And they have an old cemetery, call it Old Main, and it's 200 plus years old. And they have one of these metal posts. It's just like a historic preservation pack, but it's a folkloric preservation. I love those things. Beautiful. You'd have to be really careful about how you need a good editor to write them, because if you put a typo on that thing, it's going to be there a damn long time, you know. No. But they should, why don't they call me once in a while? At least I can spell.
You see that on gravestones a lot from the 1700s, where they would get a letter wrong on the spelling and they would literally just put an X through it and continue on with the corrections. What are you going to do?
I used to do that with my college papers, you know.
Right.
Oh, well, I'm not typing this whole damn page over again. I think my attitudes towards hauntings have changed so much, because I remember when I started this work, when I started this work 30 years ago, is it 30? I don't know, around in there, when I really started seriously researching this stuff, my attitudes about psychic phenomena, that is, ghosts, ESP, you know, mortal spooky stuff, not UFOs, not that. I mean, my attitude about it was that there's something there, and the people who disbelieve probably have just never seen it, and their sentiments are good. You know, the disbelievers, their heart is good, they just didn't see it. And I also thought that haunted sites were relatively rare, that a place that either has reports of an active haunting or that has once had them, that it was fairly uncommon. And I just don't think that anymore. I think haunted sites are a lot more common than people think. I don't think it's 1 out of 10 buildings. It may be on some streets. I can name some streets in Buffalo where it could be more than that.
Sure.
But I would say maybe, and I can think of some neighborhoods where there's almost never been any reports of psychic phenomena. One of the real connections I noticed was a connection to physical site, whether it's architecture or architecture is a big key. I discovered that I almost never got a report of a ghost out of a red brick rectangle, like a Rite Aid, a McDonald's, you know, just one of these commercial, you know, buildings that's built to be nothing but cheap and usable and disposable.
Well, it's very transient. People come, people go. There's no real emotional attachment to it.
Well, I would hope not. But I got the feeling it could even be more than that. Mm-hmm. That the form and the positioning of the building, especially the form, might have something to do with whether it would get ghost stories or not. I can't tell you that means it's haunted or not, but it'll get folklore, because that's the only thing I can prove to you, Ken. At the end of the day, I cannot prove to you somebody saw a ghost. I wasn't there. How could I prove it?
Sure.
I can prove to you that people tell stories about it. And I started to think that maybe the architecture was a major variable in a building's, not just the age, not just the human culture that could build there, but maybe there was something different about shape. And I started, remember the pyramid power fad of the 70s? They used to say, the Great Pyramid's got special geometry. Well,
that's why you see so many obelisks in graveyards, the channeling of energy from the heavens and so forth.
No argument. And even though it doesn't necessarily prove pyramid power or not, there is a theory there. There's a logic. People have believed something that would explain why buildings of a certain shape would get more ghost stories, more perceived unnatural experiences.
Yeah, and I think that's why people speak in terms of ley lines. Our ancestors seem to know something that we are only just figuring out now, because some very ornate structures were built on ley lines, whether they are churches or cemeteries or any place of worship. They found were built on ley lines, so
a lot of them.
Something we didn't.
Well, I'm a big fan of geomancy. That's landscape magic. I certainly would never claim to be an expert, but I think, yeah, you're right on about that. I believe that was part of what I meant about the positioning.
Right.
I mean, a lot of our great architects in the U.S., we'll just take that as an example.
Oh, no doubt.
They were perpetuating older styles of architecture, and they were working them in their own way. Nobody wanted to do an exact copy of the Parthenon. That would be dull for a good architect. It would be kind of hard to live in it. But for most of history, important architecture has been designed with a philosophy. Okay, this century we're neoclassical. 50 years later, we're Gothic. You get where I'm coming from.
Sure.
They tend to have a philosophy, and that philosophy will involve shape and geometry and possibly orientation to something astronomical. It might even involve, if you did have enough control over your landscape, it might even involve sacred geology. They might even put a structure, because, I've discovered that even in Western New York, my little region, some of the most important haunted sites are on top of something unusual under the ground.
Right.
Blind spring, even a gas well, things like that, a cave. It's remarkable stuff. So, I think I got on a tangent, but I think, I'm not saying these cause ghosts. I'm not saying they cause hallucinations. I'm simply saying there is a connection here. There's a link.